Okay, we've hit 5. So I'm going to go ahead and start, and hopefully the rest of our registrants will be on soon. So hello, everybody. Official welcome to today's webinar hosted by the Friendly Lawyers Association. I am Dana Zivkovich, the organizer of the Friendly Lawyers. We organized originally as a collaborative social network for small firm managing lawyers, and our purpose was to offer resources for law practice management and opportunities to grow your network with other managing lawyers. So we do things like these webinars now. We have an exclusive referral network. We have moved our social engagements online, so we do Zoom happy hours. But if you're interested, take a look at our website, and there's a bunch of information on all the things that we do. So today's webinar is going to be about video marketing. I think everybody can agree to some extent that video marketing is becoming more and more popular, and this is a way for you to get yourself out online and distinguish yourself from other firms. Now, the great thing about video marketing is that there's a wide range of services, and I have asked Mike Rataj of Bold Brain Creative to come on to talk about how you could do some video marketing yourself, what you should be thinking about, how to plan or prepare for it, and then if you wanted to take steps further, who you should contact. So Mike Rataj at Bold Brain Creative will be talking with us. His purpose is to raise your web presence, raise your web presence. Let me try it for a third time. Raise your web presence with high quality videos. A few notes about webinar housekeeping. We do have a chat box that I encourage you to use during the presentation. We are happy to incorporate comments, respond back, and I think that it really helps the other viewers if you put your anecdotes in there just so that people can share their experiences. And there are materials that you can access for reference provided by Mike. They are also here inside the webinar platform. Once you click on the link, it will download to your computer. And finally, the last thing I wanted to let everybody know is that we have a sponsor for these webinars going forward, and that is Messenia Advisors. Messenia Advisors is a local small firm accounting company. So they do accounting and payroll services for small business owners, and they are interested in helping you organize your bookkeeping. So anybody who is interested could find them at messeniaadvisors.com. Anyway, now to get started with our presentation, I have been asked by Mike to play one of his videos, and then I will bring him up to the screen. So I'll start the video.
I am Michael Rataj, head brain of Bold Brain Creative, a 21st century marketing company. So for 8 years, I stared at charts and read numbers, which is strictly based on life. That's what happened. That's what happened last month. That's what the answer is. So PMI comes in, non-farm payrolls come in, jobless claims come in. That's what it is. And month after month after month after month is where the picture really unfolds. And so with my imaginative side is where I was able to view the bigger picture and be able to take a bigger viewpoint as to what the actual world could be. Why did I have that up there? What the potential worldview could be in the coming months. So looking at analytics just gives you the data. That's real world. That's what has happened. That's based on facts. But then to see the future is where the imagination comes in, because you have to look at that. You have to assess the risk, which is what all trading is just how can I lose not as much if this thing doesn't happen. And so that's where coming up with 3 different outcomes. Okay, well, if that happens, then let's do this or this and this. And so that's judging the facts and being able to look into the future.
Hello. Thanks, Dana. So I'm Michael Rataj.
Okay. Hello. Yep. There you are. I'm gonna make you a little bit bigger. Okay, you've got the floor.
Perfect. Hi, everybody. Michael Rataj. That video was just a quick intro video, but what it hopefully does is give you an idea as to who I am. I was a trained filmmaker and animator, so I did go to school to be a weird arty person. But shortly after that, I left to just chase money, and I got into sales because I wanted to just start a life. So for 8-10 years, I spent in the retail world, for first doing mortgages, and then I spent 8 years as a retail futures broker, which was basically calling 30 to 50 people every single day, as well as managing hundreds of thousands of dollars in risk. And I thought there had to be a better way to attract clients. And so I was the salesperson that got sick of making phone calls, and I realized there's got to be a better way to just attract business. And really that led me to inbound marketing, that led me to branding, and that led me to distributing whatever kind of content you make. So currently, I guess when I first started doing this, Twitter and Facebook were hot. Since then, it's been Snapchat, Instagram, YouTube is still fairly relevant. But basically what video has the power to do is give you what I call is sort of a honeypot. And you're basically setting up little attractors for current clients and potential clients. So whether you have a certain video that you want to, that encapsulates your brand or your intro, i.e. the video you guys just watched, I actually haven't put it on my website, but that's something you would put on your about page. So when people go to your website, they'll be able to see who is the person that's running this firm or what have you. And then that's a great video to show that. Now, the video was 90 seconds, which may be a little long, but I, as a filmmaker, I kind of tend to play with that, because I think as far as marketing is concerned, you got to just keep testing every day. So if I were to really the basic tip is lead with your value, because then I think people are concerned, well, am I doing this too long? How long is the video? But you know, with social media, we have a fairly short time frame in our minds. We want maybe 5 to 20 seconds as to what we're looking at, and then we're going to move on. So that's basically all we have to convey a message. So that's why you want to lead with your value. And then if people stick around to the end, I think that just helps increase their chance of forming a bond with you, because then they're spending more time with you and again deciding if they like you or if they don't. So that was the intro video. What we're going to do on this through this next hour, you're basically going to have a plan to be able to create your first video by yourself. And then, as kind of Dana said, if you would like, I'm always available for hire, of course. That's why you speak. But in the meantime, I think you're going to have a lot of great tips. You're going to know at least what social media platforms you should focus on. And then we'll even touch briefly into the advertising rules. So again, I spent 8 years in the financial world. And so when you create content in the financial world, there is a lot of compliance. And so that's why I believe I work well in industries like law industry, other financial services, health industries, because I understand that there's a certain box that you can play in to tell your story. We're going to go over this later, but for lawyers, as far as it's concerned, you basically need to be 1,000% truthful, not fib at all, and just try and be more educational than try and sway anybody with, you know, silver tongue tactics. Because being in the financial world, I had someone monitoring my emails and monitoring my calls, making sure that I was on the up and up. Otherwise, 2 days later, I ended up having a conversation with HR. So I understand the importance of following the rules and certain things you should say. And so I think when you're going to start creating your content, don't worry about trying to overpromise anything. Just try to, either tell a story or help someone along. And we'll go into these. So as it goes. So basics of shooting a video. Right now, this is more powerful than what they shot Godfather with. So I feel like is any kind of phone that you, as long as your phone doesn't flip, you probably have a really good camera on it. So this should be sufficient to actually make your first video. Just a little tech tip about phones. The selfie cam is typically the worst quality camera. So if you are going to use your phone, you want to use the rear facing one. However, if you notice, I don't have a monitor. So you're going to need to make sure either like this, kind of get your placement, get your framing, so you can flip your phone. So you can flip your phone and then start recording, or figure out some weird mirror contraption so you could, so you can actually make sure you're in the frame. Because that's the most important thing. You need a monitor to see what you're filming, just to make sure that you look okay. But you're going to get a little worse quality if you're using the front of the screen. So that's something to keep in mind. As far as general placement and general questions, so as long as you have a decent phone, and basically if you're like, I have $100 that I just want to spend on some video equipment, what should I do? First thing, it's called a tripod. It is amazing. It literally just sets up and doesn't move. So you'll notice a bunch of people, if they end up doing like some of their videos where they're, hey, just want to give you this update, blah, 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 and you get sick because they're just shaking all over the place. So a tripod, you have a little clip, and then you just set it anywhere. As far as placement is concerned, kind of imagine your camera as a basically your guest. Whoever you're going to be talking to, you're going to want to be looking directly into your lens. And so as long as you can keep an eye line of wherever your actual lens is, you'll be sure to look decent compared to a bunch of weird spots. So, Dana?
Hey, Mike. Yeah, quick question. So these tripods, are they expensive to obtain? And okay, so that's probably a good investment as a starting point. And a question about kind of looking into the camera. Do you have any tips for helping people to, talk while they look into the abyss? I think that's something that people have difficulty overcoming. And I was wondering if you had any tricks to share.
So the tripod question, this might be like $15, but you can get these like anywhere 10 to 20. Some of them even include the phone clip. So this may be an extra adapter, but a lot of the tripods you find online, they include those. So just keep an eye out for that. As far as looking into the abyss is, that's the existential question of how to be a great performer. And I think that, it's the whole, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? It's just a lot of practice.
A lot of practice. And probably, I've heard this before, so I'm kind of assuming that you're going to say practice and watch yourself, and just get more comfortable with it.
That's exactly it. And this is a performance. As much as I'm right now, I'm definitely adding a little more. I told Dana I had coffee about an hour and a half ago. So like, I think be yourself plus 25%. So the most excited, like when you were 10 and you would run down or whenever you run down for Christmas, I don't know when you forget, but whenever you're that excited, think of that when you're doing a video. So you want to have as much emotion as possible. And then you just gotta slog through and watch it. And you just gotta, I think the hardest thing is to be a performer and to not get too into the personal issues. I know that I've done videos with people and they're like, well, my hair was a little out of place. I had a weird cloth issue, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if that is true. I think we notice those things, but as far as other people, I don't think they're necessarily a distraction for other people. So I think we need to somehow this is where it's like truly an abyss, because you're looking at yourself, you're watching yourself be kind of monotone and kind of just not as exciting, maybe talking about your story, and you just got to sit there and watch it, and it's just rough. But I think what needs to happen is just remove all that pressure that first video you create, you're going to immediately post. And I think if you do that, you can think of this before you do your first official video. I mean, you got to practice being an actor. You know, like all these people went to school for a long time. They did a lot of really bad plays, a lot of bad commercials before they got comfortable. And so it's an acquired skill. And I think I've had the best luck with my clients that were already used to speaking professionally, you know, whether it's just at lunches or what have you, but they understood, you know, using hands and being a little more emotive. So that's just, you become an actor.
I came back. Something came to mind that I thought might be helpful for everybody. And that's where, if you're thinking about doing your own short video, instead of practicing directly by looking into the camera lens, maybe you might want to consider an alternative format, like you look off to the side, almost like you're being interviewed, or you're answering a question that someone's asking of you. And that could also, I think we'll see later in one of his examples, that could also be an effective way to speak naturally and get your video done if you're not so comfortable looking at the camera.
Yeah, that's a great point. And because voiceover and just, you don't have to do this. Like this, up until 6 years ago, there was something called the fourth wall in cinema, which the audience didn't exist. Like you would never, Ferris Bueller was like this anomaly of a movie because he talked to the audience. And so it's only recently that people start assuming that there's someone on the other side of the camera. And so yeah, you can definitely use tricks where if I look here and I'm going to tell you about the proper way to look at a camera or the proper way to light, you can still get the same thing across. I mean, my eyeline was still a little off, but it helps. So if you are uncomfortable, I think that's definitely a good point. The big point is if you have a joker with you. So whether you have like if you have a good friend, you have a partner that you want to shoot videos together, you know, if it's a fellow law buddy, you guys just want to, that could be one way to practice together, because then they can help pump you up a little bit. And then maybe you're talking to them versus through the camera, and then they can make you smile. They can do jokes, they can do bunny ears, blah, blah, blah. And then so you're at least a little more comfortable. So another thought, Dana?
No,
Okay,
I'm just listening.
Okay, I'm good. So camera. So as long as you have a phone, you should be good. Placement, we talked about being a little more higher than eye level, and then really one of the next important things is lighting. So I have one little light over there, and then my key light here. I mean, I'm using a webcam, so obviously this doesn't look that good, but the main point with your lighting, just to know, is that you need to be the brightest lit thing in the room. So if right behind me, if I had there's a window right there. If that was behind me, I would look like I was in the shadows, and you would be like, who's this weirdo in the shadows? So very important to not have any windows in your shot, because that's going to be competing with you. Again, this is just a normal light that I have. I think
So you're saying that light that you're using is like a lampshade light, or spotlight. If somebody had, they should spotlight it on their face or put it in front of you.
Yeah, it's a little tabletop lamp that I took the lampshade off, which is probably why it's a little hot, but it felt a little too under with the shade on. But it works. And that's the big issue. Like if you're trying to shoot a massive room, lighting is going to be a bigger issue. But if you're someone this close to a screen and you got, a light that's maybe 1.5 feet away, it'll do the trick that you need. You don't need to worry about buying, a 3-light setup. Like just ambient lights in the room will work, and then just make sure you're the most lit. I don't want to go into color temperature too much, but I just want to say it because if you ever shoot something and you look extremely yellow, that's why. So color temperature, if you look outside, the sun is like 5,000 to 6,500 K is what the color is called. The normal soft light that you see, like when it's a softer yellow light in places, that's 2,700 K. So that's basically the biggest thing I can say to worry about if you're getting just a bulb for your lamp. The reason you don't want a 2,700 K, and this is because a lot of phones and a lot of cameras do auto exposure and auto white balance. So it may expose to the light, the window, because that's typically always going to be more powerful than anything you have in the room. So then it's going to expose to blue, and then it's going to be shining a yellow light on you from the 2,700 K, which is why you may look yellow. So if you are looking at color temperature and you think there's going to be any windows, safe bet, just get a 5,000 or 6,500 K bulb, and you'll see. Lumens, 500, 800 lumens. It's not that big of a difference.
I want to make a quick comment. You know, in that intro video that we watched of you, one thing that I noticed was I loved the mix and blend of colors between yourself, your background, the lighting. I just wanted to point out that I found that to be very relaxing to the eye.
Thank you.
And I also wanted to share, in case anybody didn't see it, we have a comment from one of the viewers that when you mix those different color temperatures in the shot, it looks really bad. So don't mix incandescent and daylight, for instance. It'll have a poor result.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can. I didn't do it on this video, but there is one. The intro video I did for this, I was shot with, or I had the 5,000 K on my face, but I had like a little yellow backlight, which I think, you know, if you can figure it out, you can actually make it look pretty decent. So then it gives me like a weird glow, like golden hue, some ego thing,
Mm-hmm.
but you know, it's cool.
It had a nice effect. So let's get a little bit into the template of your brand video, what those pieces are and how to put them together.
So a brand story is your story. I think the easiest way is to kind of start with whatever your networking pitch is, and then you can get more additive from there, because that's the story that you're telling everybody about. That's what that says the majority of your business stuff. So I think that's a good starting point. It needs to be written down, and then from there you got to figure out, if you're a writer, develop it a little more, figure out some of your history, figure out the people and the problems that you solve, because I think that's an important thing with a marketing video versus just a narrative video, because the marketing video needs to answer a specific question to someone, whether it's a certain demographic. It just needs to answer their question, so they just find you more appealing. So brand story, your history, what you do, the problems you solve, and then if you are like a niche, then you focus on a niche. But I think those are the core. And then there it just goes deeper and deeper, because if you know, like my video. So I shot it at a restaurant. Kind of, as you mentioned, I thought it was very calm, very cool spot, and I feel like people would hopefully, after they see that, feel like, okay, he's a pretty calm guy or relaxed, and just subtly, you know, I don't know, make people think that I'm chill.
So when you say you shot it at a restaurant, you asked the owner if you could shoot a video there?
We were doing some marketing work with them. It was a meeting with one of my writer that I work with. It's this.
Okay.
She lives across the street, so she's like best friends with the restaurant. So we kind of use that as a location.
Okay, so possibly if anybody out there has a friend who has a restaurant or has an art gallery, those might be some interesting backdrops if you don't want to use your office. Or maybe even locations that relate to your clients. I mean, elder law comes to mind. So places that are common for seniors might be a good branding spot. So that's something to think about too, I suppose.
Yeah, because you really, I mean, this is a composition. You know, like for better or worse, this is what it is. My friend suggested I should have random boom stands so people know it's kind of like a studio. So I just put my cords and mic just to be more video production-y. But yeah, if location is huge. I mean, wherever you're situated it's going to be how people think of you. So as cool of a spot as possible is ideal, but of course you got to work with what you have. So, um, so that was location, and then that was what you started with, right? You just asked about location.
Yeah, I was making, yeah, you had referenced how you shot in the restaurant, and I had no idea that you were in a restaurant. And then that made me think, oh, well, that's a good idea. If anybody has a connection that owns some kind of public space that is already designed, with a visual art in mind, that might be a good person to reach out to, which then led me to the thought that, or if you have a certain client base that you're trying to connect with, maybe think about what that client is connecting to and if you can recreate that for your own video. So I thought I would share those ideas.
Yeah, and that's it, because part of the video, like part of the power of video is that I could be saying things while different images are flashing. So I mean, I could tell you one story and hopefully make you feel another story, like through the different visuals. And so whether that's showing you're a quirky person or you're respectful or serious or whatever, but yeah, it's very important to plan on your composition. And that, just a quick note on composition, since framing is a key thing. As you notice, you typically just want to give yourself just like an inch or two of headroom at the top, just to sort of give the top of your head. And I let it just fall. I don't think it matters as much. I like a lot of videos with people on their hands on the desks, but if it screws up your framing, if you only have a foot from your wall to the desk, like, you just work with what you do. So as long as your head is mostly in frame, that's kind of the most important thing. And then, most photography, people are, in a lot of my photos, it's all about angles and trying to be thirds and trying to be, just everything's askew. Sometimes straight ahead tells the best story. Like this room is, I'm just trying to make it interesting, but at the same time, like, I just want you to notice me and then listen to what I'm saying. So framing, it's subtle, like, because it's hard to really know what works and what doesn't unless you've looked at a lot of photography and a lot of paintings and a lot of other movies. So I think that's again another reason why you need to shoot it and then look, because if you're going to start composing for yourself, you got to make sure that it looks good, because it may feel good, but then once you sit back and you can objectively look, it may have a totally different vibe that you were wanting to do. So that's composition. And that's, like I said, I think as long as you follow eye line, as long as you're looking essentially into the lens or, just off, you're going to have a pretty good framing, because that's like the rule one. You want to make sure a little higher than your eyes, and that'll at least give you like 50% better of a shot. And then just make sure you're lit, and then that'll help too. So kind of taking care of a lot of the biggest issues that people have just by those basic rules, which I guess leads me to sound, because sound is the other unspoken hero of video that people don't acknowledge. So what we're going to do now, you guys have heard John Cage's, what is it, 433, whatever that song is. I'm just going to be quiet for 5 seconds and just listen to everything around you. Like, those things might show up in your video. Whatever you heard, if it was someone yelling, if it was someone cutting grass, if you guys can hear my air conditioning unit. So I think it's important that if you are going to do your video, try and get the room as isolated as possible. And I only say isolated as in, you know, you don't have to spend $10,000 on soundproofing, but just if you have windows, make sure the shades are closed so you're not letting in the noise from the outside. If you can put any, ideally you don't want to record in like a big wooden room, because that's just your voice is just going to echo off of all the walls and it's just going to be very reverby. So ideally a carpeted room, even if you put towels next to you, that'll help dampen some of the audio. So again, it's not just going to be boosting all over the place.
And you're saying that's just talking into the air or without a microphone? Or are you saying even with a microphone, add those towels and soft textures?
Both. I mean, ideally, if you're just talking, you almost need more muffling the less high quality microphones you have, because then you're just basically picking up the room. So as much as you can dampen like all the echoes and whatnot, the more ideal. Sound just travels. So I think just the more dampening you can get anywhere is just ideal. And that's it. Microphones. So a lot of it's, you know, it's okay. The cameras that are on here, I think you can do it again if you're going to make sure that you're going to record in an isolated room. You're not going to have that much of an issue of background noise in here, and so it should suffice. However, if you're going to try and do it at a bar or outside or something, keep in mind that the phone, how it picks up, you know, your 3-year-old 200 feet away, that's what it'll do on your videos. It'll just pick up a bunch of random sound. So if you can, get as quiet as possible. We're also at the point where people understand, like if you're in a real world situation and they hear a horn honk, I don't think people are going to look down at you and be like, oh, did you hear that horn honk? They are ridiculous. So
what about those, and there's like a word that I never use. Yeah, those.
lavalier mic.
Yes.
So this is how I'm recording myself. Typically you would put it here, but since I'm at a desk, I just.
Is that an expensive item? And is it worth buying?
So this and the microphone, I think the microphone on its own is about 60. With the pack, it was like $200. So the big reason that I have a pack is, which we'll show later, is I do a lot of interviews with more than one person. And so when you have 4 people talking at one time, or even 2 people, that's when just a catch-all, just one audio track is going to be an issue, because then talent or actor 1 is going to be coughing while actor 2 is going to be making the most important point they have. And you'll be like, oh wait, we didn't get any of that because he was coughing. So that's why you'd want to separate actors if you're going to have more than one person. So again, if you're doing solo stuff, it may not be as relevant, but you will notice. You will notice, you know, it's a better microphone. You're more direct, so there's less echo because I'm only recording to here. So it's just going to pick it up a lot better. If I boost it, then it'll be just closer to my voice than the whole ambient sound that you get. So,
and now I've seen some of those microphones out in front of somebody. A lot of times I see them with these YouTubers, and it's like a monster muffin on top of the stick. I mean, is that necessary?
So I think what one of the things you're talking about, which I don't have, is basically a pop stopper. So anytime you say your P's, it's like just listening through headphones, it sounds like an explosion every time you say, I can't pop the pop. Like it basically ruins the audio track. So a lot of times you need to put the black, just kind of mode,
something fuzzy.
Yeah, I don't even know, the windscreen, I think it's called. And so you just put that on the microphone it's a pop stopper, actually. That's what they call it.
Okay.
And so that just gets you a cleaner audio. And you'll notice the difference. I mean, it's just, I wish I actually had an example, but it is, you get the pops, you get all these inconsistencies and it's not good. So a lot of them too, I think some of the YouTuber, like as far as, this is microphones. If you really want to go into it, I mean, there's, $2,000 microphones, and you'll get that much better of a sound. But again, if we're talking like quick updates and
Okay.
a lav or solo just to a camera will suffice.
So a lot of these branding videos that I've seen tend to use some of an actor's, typically an attorney's responses, and then they cut in other images. Now, is that something that you think is at a novice level using some basic software, or is that beyond a reasonable expectation? Should someone, if they were to try a branding video on their own, should they limit the size and scope further than that? What are your thoughts about that?
That's a really good question, and also very open-ended. Because I think if you have any inkling, if you have any artistic interest in doing it, then yes, I think you should. Like, I love taking photos, and I love making movies. So like anyone that feels this joy doing it, you should like
have fun with it. You're saying,
yeah, have fun with it.
If you have,
push it.
uh-huh.
But it's work. It's not easy. It's very tedious. So I mean, it might actually be kind of therapeutic. That's what I mean. Editing to me is very therapeutic because you can kind of just organize everything, and everything has its place, and then it's like you just have a second and a half for each clip. So editing
Is there editing software that is either free or reasonably priced for something like that?
iMovie is great. They've edited movies on iMovie. And
okay.
So editing they all add up to make a better video. Like better camera, better lighting makes better video, but editing is where it becomes this whole other thing. But it is fairly easy because a lot of the times it's just a video track and an audio track on a timeline, and you just cut. You just say, okay, Mike saying, hi, my name is Michael Rataj from Ball Bearing Creative. And then I cut to that shot of me, like looking off camera. And you just got to know the timing on that timeline to edit, which is easy. But it's also, I mean, it's taken me a long time to know. Editing is finding the best 1.5 seconds of whatever clip you're using. So to find that best 1.5 seconds is a journey, but I think it's definitely worth exploring if you're interested in any kind of video creativity, to just get iMovie, get Windows Movie Maker.
There's a couple questions. Is there an iMovie counterpart for Android?
I
too, and am an Android fan, so I'm interested in this question.
Me too. What did I use? Instagram. Well, Instagram uses, that's just kind of clip size. Actually, the YouTube Mobile Studio.
Okay, you'd recommend the YouTube Mobile Studio.
I mean, it's Google editing. So I mean, they bring it down to the basics and what you need to know. And so I think you could do a lot of what you need just through YouTube. And then of course through there.
And what about your editing software? What do you use for
Premiere?
Your work.
I'm Adobe Suite, so that's like Photoshop and Illustrator and After Effects and Premiere. It's, you can do the photo things for like $10 a month, but once you get to the video editing, it's like 50 or something. So it's not even. You got to be serious with really wanting to like make the movies.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that's what I was trying to get at too with editing timelines. Like, you can get away with iMovie if it's just a single audio track and a single video track, and you're just doing placement, because you could use.
Now with iMovie, do you have to, like, I have not a single Apple product.
You need a Mac. Yeah, it's free with like all Apple products. Yeah, I know.
Okay.
but yeah, so I mean, editing, because editing is editing. Like that's you're just cutting up a timeline, and so a lot of the magic is within you, because all you're doing is knifing a clip. So you just have a second and a half, and then you just do that for 30 different clips. So if you're not going to add titles, you're not going to do green screen, you're not going to do a bunch of audio effects. Like the reason I have Premiere is because I can do my audio processing, my video editing, my titles, a little bit of animation, all in that. But if you're just going to piece together, you know, put a couple photos over the video of you talking, any free editing software.
Have you heard of GIMP?
Yes, it's a Photoshop alternative, right? I don't know if it's a.
Oh, I don't. Okay, it's for photos. I didn't know if it had a video component to the software.
You know, this is. I think every time I Google this, like I've tried to do tutorials like top 10 free editing software, and because it's such a personal, you know, Premiere, like once you get into Adobe, like you're just hooked on Adobe. Like it's such a personal thing for like what
Like the
paintbrush
style and the dashboard and the design and how easy it is to learn. I kind of understand what you're saying.
and
So
now, like, you know, when I went to school back in Y2K, it was like $10,000. You know, like these editing software it wasn't cheap, and there was like Final Cut Pro and Premiere, and you just had to pay up and you had to get them. So now, like, same thing with the phone. This is just my general statement about capitalism. Like, as consumers, every year we just win. Like, the technology just gets better every year, like way better than the movies, way better than the stuff people were using to make movies, like that they made Star Wars. Like
oh,
people
I was
made.
just thinking of Star Wars because I watched the first one like 2 years ago and I was like, oh my God, this is what everybody's going nuts about. No, that's funny you mentioned that.
Well, I've been watching Seinfeld lately. I cannot believe how many shots are out of focus, which I think is them just zooming in on their, you know, 720 by 480. And that's the problem. We're shooting in 4K 1080, and then we're only displaying at 720 or 1080, and so you can do zooming.
One more question before we move on from editing. I just wanted to know if you ever heard of WeVideo, because that is what we started using for these webinars. We just started using it. So no thoughts about it? Okay.
No.
Well, I put it out there for anybody who also wants an alternative to look up. So let's move kind of towards the different platforms, what to do with your video once you've put something together and you've got it all worked out. What sorts of things can you do with your video to use it in multiple ways, you know, get as much mileage out of it as you can? And can you talk to me a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So distribution is, of course, the issue with movies. Before, we obviously went to the cinema, blah, blah, blah. Now just new platforms are available for us to show a video. So I think understanding, one, who your demographic is, like who are you trying to connect with, backs you into what social media platform is the best one for you to use. As a general statement, however, I just like YouTube. As for any kind of videos you have, whether it's tutorials, brand stories, even the quick social media clips that people aren't necessarily searching for on YouTube, I think are still worth to put there, and sort of treat YouTube as your library of videos. Because what YouTube has is something called embed. And so what they have is, when you share the video, instead of just sharing the link, you can actually share the code. You can copy it onto your website. So now, instead of using bandwidth on your website, you're now using Google's unlimited bandwidth to host your video and play your video on your website. So that right there makes me think like you just need a YouTube video, or you just need a YouTube channel. Treating YouTube, however, is a lot different, you know, than Facebook and the other platforms as far as how people find you. So YouTube is still the #2 search engine. So you need to plan, like if you're posting on Facebook or Instagram, or LinkedIn even, you can be witty with your copy. You can just be witty with your copy and just try and be funny because you want someone to read and watch. YouTube, you kind of need to plan that this is the #2 search engine in the world. So you got to assume that people are on there trying to solve a problem. So then that's how you can kind of think of your business as in, what problems are people searching about my business? So how old should I be to set up my first will? When should I set up a will for my kids? When should and then this is where you can go into the Google Analytics. I think trends.google.com. I always get to it through the Google ads, but trends.google.com plus YouTube, like just typing in that actual question, like how young or how old do I need to be to set up a will, and look at the top 10 videos that show up. And then that's your answer. So you see all the text that they're doing, you see how they titled the video, you see the descriptions, you see all the tags. And so YouTube is more, you got to think of it as its own separate beast. But it can also be, once you have utilized there, you can then use it on your website, on the homepage, the about page, whatever.
So I know TikTok has gotten a lot more popular. And I believe even somebody recently bought it, like, somebody like Facebook.
Microsoft
Microsoft maybe is put an offer on it.
Yeah.
Okay. And I have a question about, what TikTok is a limited video, right? Or do you make a video in TikTok, or do you make your own video and then you put it up on TikTok?
I think that's sort of both, but I think more make it in there versus like production, like kind of like, I don't know if I would necessarily post my intro video that we watched onto TikTok, but I would take.
So TikTok might be a platform that one would want to use for kind of bits of information that they can get out, or maybe,
right.
News headlines that you want to release.
But this is the other thing about almost jumping on some of those platforms, where TikTok is still, it's a hot thing, and I think their user base is like teen. It's like 14 to young 20s. Okay. So it's still relevant to have stuff there, but then that's where demographic wise, like personally look inside yourself and see, is this who I'm really going after, or am I going, who exactly do I want? Because then that gets you to Facebook and Instagram, because Instagram just came out with Reels, which is their TikTok killer.
Okay. And that Instagram Reels is something similar to like the Facebook story?
It's similar but different. It's the TikTok stories on Instagram. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, because Instagram, that's what, they had Instagram stories to kill Snapchat. Then they did IGTV, which was movies are always shot like this, but then IGTV is making videos like this. Like they're just saying, no, screw your horizontal. It's a vertical format. It hasn't really taken off. I just saw that I think Sony is doing like a vertical channel or vertical streaming. So.
Okay. Well, I wanted to bring your attention, that we're inside of 10 minutes. And if you wanted to highlight what you feel is important for people to know, that we should make sure we do discuss that.
Yes. The last thing I'll say is LinkedIn. I don't know if you guys are using it aggressively, but I would consider using that as another placement for your video. So you're going to put it on YouTube, but putting it on a company page on LinkedIn, or even just your personal page, is also a great idea. Not as many people, and the reason LinkedIn is hot now is because not as many people are creating content like they are on Facebook and Instagram. Like everyone's competing on those platforms. And that's now our professional life that now we need to create content for, that we need to be responsible for professionally. So I think that's why people are hesitant to just overflood it with content. but it also provides the opportunity that once you find your voice, LinkedIn is still where you can get a lot of that good organic reach. So LinkedIn, Facebook page, I think it still makes sense. You know, and it may be maybe even just to boost a Facebook page, but what you're doing is just adding on, like all these new social platforms are just different places for you to post these different video content. So, you know, that 1.5-minute video won't look good on Instagram, but I'll use maybe 15 seconds of that video to repurpose it. So I think you need to, it's understanding how the different platforms work, understanding the demographics on the individual platforms, and then from there you can kind of start a strategy of who you're trying to reach and what you want to go after. So that's important. The other main important thing is going back to our beginning statement, is that you, now that you're going to do a video, you are becoming a performer. So don't feel like you need to post that first video. I mean, I think you'll remove so much stress if you know that you're just going to record 10 minutes of stuff. You're going to watch it later with a glass of wine. You're going to just see if you're funny. You're going to see if you're good, or give it to a significant other and, you know, let someone objectively look at it and start listening to feedback. Because now you just got to listen to feedback, and it's so hard to do for ourselves, you know, to be able to like separate getting personal about that. So I think I've been a performer my entire life. So like I've been a drummer and all, so I just know the anxiety, the butterflies, but it's also nice knowing that something isn't the final performance. And so that's why I want to say, consider things practice. Like the first video doesn't have to be the brand story, but you can work towards that. And then you'll take elements from the one you liked, and then you'll keep building, and then you'll know. It's, you know, like when a house is done, or when a meal's finished cooking, like the more meals you cook, you know when something's done. And so you just got to do more videos to know what's good and what's bad. And then you need to observe videos too. This is where you need to, I love college because we basically watched movies and talked about them. So now you just need to start watching movies more objectively, watch other people's content, and try and see where did you stop? What triggered you to like watch their video? And then how were they? And how do you feel? And then just start playing those into your performance. And I think with practice, you'll be good. So, yeah. So what I do, my pitch, again, to start off, is I left phone sales to just try and be inbound marketing because I was so sick of doing sales. I just believe in attracting. So think of your videos as something to attract future business. How I help is I try to do affordable videos for people with, you know, a couple hours a month. You can get 4 to 5 clips that you can post on social media. It's not going to be brand story quality, but it's going to be high quality video that you're going to show looks a little better. So if you do want a brand story, you want a little more advanced stuff, that's where I can help. Everyone on the call or on this, I'm more than happy to do 15-minute strategy call or whatever you guys want to do. If you want to talk about social media or your page, more than happy to give anything like that. So
Mike, why don't you go ahead and type into the chat your email address and website so that anybody interested can jot that down, while I just, you know, remind people of a couple things. We are coming within a few minutes of close, so I wanted to let people know that this has been applied with the MCLE Board for credit. We are still pending approval, and you will receive an email after the webinar which asks for your confirmation of attendance. If we get approval, we will then forward you a CLE certificate by email. So it is important that you confirm attendance if you're looking for that CLE credit. As well, I want to take a second before anybody logs off to thank Mike for sharing his expertise with us for this last hour. And we do usually have a after the webinar discussion in case anybody has specific questions they want to raise, or we can talk about a couple more topics. But I always have an opportunity right at the hour mark to let people transition off if they need to go, because we understand that everybody's got a lot of things going on. So that would be now, because we're right at about 5 o'clock. Mike, did you have any last parting words before we go into after the webinar talks?
I realized I had a couple videos we never showed. Time kind of flew by.
Did you want to show anything right now?
Yeah,
we have a few minutes before
let's do
the technical official hour is up.
Well,
I did. You asked if I would share my brand video, so I'm happy to do that. I employed Mike to help me with the brand video because I'm doing a website remodel for my own practice, and I was really happy with the way it came out. So I'll play that for you guys, and hopefully it'll give you some ideas.
Hi, I'm Dana Zivkovich, and I'm an estate planning and estate administration attorney. We like to concentrate our expertise in those areas so that we can serve the client better. We realize that it's very difficult at times to be dealing with family members and organizing your estate, and we want to be sensitive to your needs as well as making sure you understand everything that's going on and that you're informed so that you can make the right decision that's best for you and your family.
What happened to it?
No audio. Looked good though.
Oh, no audio? You didn't hear it? Try that again.
But yeah.
I'll try that one more
Hi,
time.
I'm Dana Zivkovich, and I'm an estate planning and estate administration attorney. We like to concentrate our expertise in those areas so that we can serve the client
other
better.
people are hearing it.
We realize that it's very difficult at times to be dealing with family members and organizing your estate, and we want to be sensitive to your needs as well as making sure you understand everything that's going on and that you're informed so that you can make the right decision that's best for you and your family.
Oh, I don't know. It just...
And then that's one of the portraits I took. So if anyone wants...
How about now?
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. I'm clicking too fast. Didn't play all the way through on my end. It kicked us out, but...
It played. We saw it, or I saw it all.
Hopefully, it did give you some ideas of all the different things that Mike's been talking about today. Okay, so for the after the webinar talk, I just wanted to ask you a little bit about storyboarding, because I think it's a familiar term. And how would you apply storyboarding to your own video production? For like, if I'm going to do my own video production, I'm going to play around with it. What's the process behind storyboarding, and how would that help me put it together?
That's right. I had a whole thing on this and we didn't even get to touch on it. I think it depends how visual you are, but I think the easiest thing is to start with your actual script and then just write it out. And then I would associate any images that you want to be associating with the script. So it's whether you imagine, like when we were doing yours, it was the awards. I mean, this was kind of on the fly, but we knew it was awards and other law-related things that we wanted to help convey. And so that was just sort of just something I know from doing stuff. So I think imagining, the emotions that you want to convey, and then if you have any actual images to convey those emotions, writing those down with the script, because storyboarding is a sketch. I mean, it doesn't, so
it's almost like a little comic strip of your video.
And if you're doing, I mean, if it's just person talking in front of the camera, you know, like center shot, you only need one.
Yep.
That's the only storyboard you need. So that's why if you're visual too, then, you know, clouds, ocean, fast cars driving, whatever. So
it's almost like when you receive these instructions from Japan and they don't give you any words, they just give you the pictures in order of what you're supposed to do.
Basically, I mean, and that's, and because it's really how visual you are. And, you know, because that's how in depth you can get with storyboarding. Because finding a lot of those B-rolls, a lot of that stuff ends up happening on site. Like I kind of have a general, whenever I plan things, you know, it's the script, and then it's like, okay, here are the words. Now I need some visuals to correlate with these words. So then just the immediate things that come to my head that I would associate, I just put those down as the brainstorming, you know, game. Just getting them out, just having them there, and then filming it's not on the fly. That's the thing. Like this stuff gets touched 30 times, you know, before you end up filming it. So I think that's the other thing of not trying to get caught up on the first thing, because there's so many other things to keep going through, and it'll change because once you're on location, if you planned one type of B-roll, but now there's like, you're at a cooler environment, so then you want to incorporate that more. So
yeah, I'm sorry, I was listening to you, but I was looking to my right because I had a few questions that I wanted to ask you, and I just was reviewing to see if what the next thing I was going to ask you about. But tagging off of what you were just talking about, how you kind of redo and revisit and you retouch, because you can't help it. You see something, you're like, you want to improve it a little bit, and then it almost becomes kind of fun to do. Reminded me of when Mike and I had, and I'll share this anecdote with the people that are still on for after the webinar. Mike and I had this idea kind of on the spot. We were looking around the office and there was the scales sitting there. And I thought, or I don't know, remember if you came up with the idea, but somebody thought, well, let's talk about how, you know, Dana is like, let's compare apples to oranges. And so we took the law scale and we took an apple and an orange that was in the office, or we brought it or something, and we were putting it on the scale and playing around with it, and I was juggling these oranges. And it's just an anecdote to talk about how when you're in the moment and you're looking around and you get these creative ideas and you just infuse them into your video, and it could really work, you know, for what you're trying to do. And for us, we had a good time, and it, you know, it kind of,
it shows more personality.
It helped us, yeah, put together our thing.
Because that was early, because that was like our first hangout. So for us to make a joke and then we're like, yeah, let's do it. I think it's fun though, because it shows a personality. And I am being so much of a performer, I believe we get like 70 to 80% concrete. And then that other 20% is just like
spontaneity,
magic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
so sometimes when you storyboard, you know, you don't want to put too much emphasis on that's going to be the final product, but keep in mind that, you know, you may add stuff spontaneously that really works for your video. I think that's important to keep in mind, especially I learned a lot, you know, through that process as well. One other thing I wanted to bring up is how long do you think a video, you know, what's the shelf life of a video? How long do you think you should use your video before you should start refreshing? You know, do you have a thought about that?
I think some of the jokes I was trying to write was basically until your hair or your paint start to go out of style. And so, which I think I mean, obviously it's a facetious joke, but I think it's really true though, because you can get away with it. You know, if it's still close, even if you age a little bit, but it's still, I think that's fine. So I think it's all, it depends. Like everything is so contextual to the time. So I think it depends. Because if it's dated, it's the content and the look. Because if it's dated content, then it just kind of pushes itself out the window anyways. Because you're like, wait, this is just wrong information. I don't want that out there, and then you just stop posting it. Or if you're like, oh, I hate that, my hair. What the heck was I was thinking?
Yeah.
But I think they can exist though. I mean, as watching Star Wars, that's 40 years, 50 years, whatever. Like, stuff holds up. It still can look dated, but even if the content is good, or if it's like a good enough video, like, it'll work.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Those are all my questions.
Cool.
Thanks again for hanging out.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This was wonderful.
All right.
I
Bye,
hope
everybody.
people had
Have
fun.
a good weekend.